Hello, and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Thursday, 16 January. I'm your host, Daniel, and let's get into the brief. Today, we'll be covering UK's Starmer signs a 100-year treaty with Ukraine. China is to start probing US exports of mature chips. And tensions are rising as the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deals faces approval hurdles. So firstly, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has visited Kiev on Thursday, where he and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a landmark 100-year partnership treaty. The agreement focuses on strengthening cooperation in security, science, energy and trade, particularly to enhance the military collaboration and to counter Russian aggression in the Baltic and Black Seas. Starmer emphasized the deep bond between the UK and Ukraine, stating that the treaty was a reflection of the strong relationship between the two nations. Zelensky also hailed the partnership, calling the day historic and to closer ties. During a joint press conference, Starmer reaffirmed the UK's commitment to training Ukrainian soldiers, announcing the provision of new mobile air defense systems tailored specifically to Ukraine's needs. He criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin's strategic failure in attempting to sever Ukraine's ties with its partners and underscored the strengthening of the Ukrainian and UK relations. Starmer's visit is part of a broader European show of support for Ukraine, and it comes amidst concerns about the potential impact of Donald Trump's return to office. Starmer also pledged an additional £40 million to Ukraine's post-war recovery and indicated that there have been discussions on the possibility of Western troops being deployed to Ukraine for monitoring any ceasefire agreements. So what? Currently, the biggest challenge for Ukraine is facing the lack of troops, and sadly, no agreement with a foreign government can fix that. However, it seems likely that there has also been significant issues with getting promised equipment to the battlefield. At the strategic level, it seems likely that Ukraine is waiting for Trump to come into office before making any decisions. While Ukraine's negotiating position is not too strong at the moment, it will be interesting to see what Trump does to strengthen this. And next, China's Commerce Ministry has announced plans to investigate US exports of mature chips commonly used in products such as cars and home appliances, citing concerns over unfair competition due to the US government's subsidies. According to Beijing, these subsidies allow American companies to export chips to China at low prices, harming the domestic industry. China's domestic firms have alleged that the Biden administration's substantial financial support for the chip sector has given US companies an unfair edge. The ministry emphasized that Chinese companies have the right to seek trade remedy investigations to protect their legitimate interests. The announcement comes shortly after US President Joe Biden introduced new export rules targeting advanced computer chips used in artificial intelligence, further restricting China's access to cutting-edge technology. These measures are seen as part of a broader strategy to limit China's technological advancements. Beijing did not specify when the investigation into these mature chips would begin or how long it would last. So what? This move is almost certainly part of the continuing trade war between the US and China. This competition seems unlikely to end anytime soon as Trump's America First trade policy comes into force. If anything, it seems possible that there will be an increase in intensity in the early stages of the Trump administration. And lastly, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that the ceasefire agreement with Hamas is not yet finalized, with key details still being discussed. The deal, which could lead to the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners, would not be approved until the cabinet votes later. Meanwhile, deadly Israeli strikes continued in Gaza, and Netanyahu's office accused Hamas of stalling the agreement to extract last-minute concessions. Despite this, Hamas insists that they are still committed to the ceasefire deal, which is seen as a temporary step towards a broader peace. Celebrations broke out in Gaza and among Israeli supporters as both sides hoped for the agreement's approval. Mediators from the US and Qatar have emphasized that the ceasefire is only a starting point, with further discussions needed for a lasting resolution. Netanyahu's office stated that the deal would not be signed until Hamas fully accepted its terms, while some feared that the ongoing conflict would delay the ceasefire's implementation. Polymarket odds on the ceasefire deal coming into effect before January 31st shot up over the last week, climbing from below 40% to over 90%, indicating that a large portion of people using the site believed the ceasefire is close. So what? While there is a hopeful peace, there is also a real possibility that this ceasefire will fail before it even starts. Unfortunately, this is a common move by Hamas to try and force through some more favourable measures at the last moment, using public pressure to make Israel secede. However, it is possible that in this instance it may not work, as the Israeli government likely views the incoming Trump government as a strength. Thank you for tuning in to the Intel Brief, your daily update on global geopolitics, brought to you by HM Intelligence. You can support the show by sharing it with your friends and leaving us a 5-star review. And if you're curious to learn more about intelligence, you can check out one of our courses in the description below. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.